The information at the weekend. We made her aware, obviously the governing bodies, the commission. We had a statement ready to go about 24 hours earlier, but I wanted to make sure that she had an opportunity to put her statement out, because obviously it's a big fight for her coming up. We'll support her in every way. She protests her innocence. She, the conversations are she's confused. She passed the test earlier. She passed the test 2 days later, but she has to be responsible for the findings from Drug Free Sport and Salt Lake City, and we'll support her during that process. But obviously the news is out there, and that's the situation she faces.
You said she protests her innocence. Do you believe she's innocent?
I always want to believe a fighter's innocent, and she, sometimes you look back in this situation, she asked for testing for this fight. She asked for Leonard to and herself to be have voluntary testing during this fight. So, and none of it really makes sense so close to a fight. You talk about fighters in this 12-week cycle and stuff like that. I don't know enough about the substances, the levels. I want to believe Alicia. I hope she can prove her innocence, and I will support her in any way, but she must go through this process now, and that looks like that process is beginning quite quickly, which is a good thing. We've heard back from some of the governing bodies to say this is what's going to happen.
Do you expect them to be stripped of her world titles and the Leonard R2 fight rule in the contest?
Again, something for the Michigan Commission and the governing bodies. Hopefully there can be a reason, a resolution, or to showcase her innocence. But obviously, as we've seen with other situations, that needs to be forthcoming.
What else wants to go? Eddie, just on the Anthony Joshua front. I think there's a lot of people saying online that your chin has changed somewhat, and how likely a Deontay Wilder fight is to be next. Like last month, you were saying it's locked in, and now we're optimistic. We hope we can get it made. What's changed?
Really locked in. I mean,
you did say it was locked in.
Yeah, well, I didn't say it was locked in. To be locked in, it has to be signed. I mean, we don't. Well, I said it was. What did I?
You said it was locked in.
I might have said with that fight locked in, but it's never been signed. It's never been confirmed. But all I can tell you is, someone said today, I think it's Johnny Nelson said, I think this is just spin. Like, I'm not being funny. I've been to Saudi Arabia twice to negotiate this fight. I've had 3 meetings in London. I'm not doing it for banter. Like, my instructions from Anthony Joshua are, I want to fight Deontay Wilder. The only way this fight doesn't happen, if Saudi don't deliver the fight. Shelley Finkel, Wilder, as far as I'm hearing from them directly, they are in. We are in. We just need to sign the contract and go through the procedures to get that done. If it doesn't happen, I think he'll fight in December. But it's not, we're spinning that fight. All of our efforts have been for that fight. I honestly wouldn't waste my time flying around the world trying to pretend that that's the fight we want. That is the fight we want. It's a massive fight, massive money, and that is what I've been instructed to deliver for AJ.
What's the time scale you're looking at for that?
To get it done, or for the fight? ASAP. Frank Smith was in a meeting with Prince Khalid yesterday. Skills challenge. I think they're talking about a time frame of a week or 2 weeks. The fight's scheduled to take place middle to the end of January. We're all positive, and like I said, we're in. If it can be delivered, we're in.
AJ said after the fight with Helenius that he wanted 2 more fights this year.
Yeah, that was encouraging, but I think unlikely at the same time. I think he definitely, the one thing that he's enjoying more than anything is being active. He has never had so much activity. What's he had now? 2 fights in 4 months. And he wants to fight in December. He also understands that if we get the Wilder fight in January, that's fine as well. But if we don't get that Wilder fight in the next, I'm not putting a time frame on it, but I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, which there's no reason why we shouldn't, we may start looking at a fight in November, December. We can still fight Wilder in February or March. The only other thing is Wilder's comments about, is he going to fight? I think Malik Scott said he may fight in October. That's a concern for us, because don't really want him to fight later than September if he's fighting in January. But, we'll see what they say. I truly believe Wilder is in for the fight. I truly believe that. I don't think they're wasting their time either.
If not Wilder, what are the other names you're looking at?
I don't know, really. I think you're going to get the best of AJ, maybe even Tyson Fury. Maybe we fight in November, December, and then fight Fury in the spring, summer. I don't see many opponents in that top 15 that stand out. Look, if Fury was to fight Usyk, maybe AJ fights Hrgovic. Or if Zhang beats Joyce, maybe he fights Zhang in China. I don't know. But honestly, he's not. I say he's not motivated for those fights. What he's motivated for is massive fights. So if I went to him now and said, "Yeah, you could fight Zhang, or you could fight, I don't know, Bacoli or something," he'd be like, "Fucking hell, well, where's the big ones?" That's his mindset.
Eddie, do you want to talk about Conor? There's been reports, obviously, that UKAD and British Boxing Board of Control are going to appeal the decision. How does that affect Conor? I mean, he wants to get on with his life.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very disappointing, and once again, we get to the last day or last 48 hours before they have the right to appeal, and then they appeal, so everything gets dragged on. Ultimately, Conor Benn is licensed. He has an international license with a very reputable commission that we didn't move forward with because he was suspended by UKAD. And we had conversations with them. They weren't overly comfortable with him moving forward at that time because he was suspended. Right now, he is not suspended. He's not suspended by UKAD, and therefore he's not suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control. We appreciate he doesn't have a licence. What Conor Benn could do right now is one of two things. He could definitely fight internationally with his licence that he has, because he's not suspended by any governing bodies around the world. And he can also use his international licence to fight in Britain with permission to box from the British Boxing Board of Control, which would be very interesting, because I don't think the board could actually legally turn down Conor Benn fighting in the UK because he's not suspended. Again, that brings another legal argument into play. So really, we don't want that. What we want is him to resume his career. We had the opportunity to do that last time. He won fair and square. Now they want to appeal. We don't see any difference in the result next time, but it probably will be a 6 or 8 week period. But the good thing is about that is after this appeal, I think there's nowhere to go in terms of the British Boxing Board of Control. I think that at that point they have to hold their hands up and say, okay, time to move forward. We felt that time was now. Frustrating, but after what has been 12, 13 months, what's another 5 or 6 weeks?
And do you think it's about time that we started looking at different governance or different testing? Because lots of these testing agencies are coming up with positive results, and we know Matchroom do a lot more testing than most other promotional companies. But is it about time we had a universal, worldwide testing program that everyone sticks to the same?
Yeah, the problem is that some commissions. Was one of the problems with the Conor Benn situation. Some commissions work with or only identify with certain commissions. We know now that the board are changing their rules recently to be able to look at other testing organisations, but ultimately the board testing procedure is governed by UKAD. Okay, so I would love a situation where there is one agency testing everybody. Don't forget that. Now, people talk about drug-free sport, which is another agency that we use. By the way, drug-free sport's clients include the NFL, the NBA, NCAA, NASCAR, LPGA. Like, they are huge, and they are exactly the same laboratory that VADA use in Salt Lake City. It all goes through exactly the same process. But then you've got VADA, then you've got UKAD, for example. The bigger problem for me is most of these organisations outside of UKAD are just a reporting agency, okay? So you take the instance of Alicia Baumgardner, where she says to us, okay, I want to make sure there's testing for this fight for Leonardo 2. She said that to us, right? So we went out, we made sure we paid for that, and we made sure it was in place. The problem is with all this additional testing is once drug-free sport or once VADA or whoever it is report on the findings and the substances and the levels from the laboratory, they go, see you later, right? And you're left with this massive mess. So for us, it's a disaster because we don't actually know what the process is. So if you look at this situation, which is in good news, some of the governing bodies have reached out to us and said, okay, this is the process that we will undertake, and we will begin that now. This can really disrupt a fighter's career for so many years. It needs to be dealt with immediately. And by the way, Alicia Baumgardner needs the opportunity to prove her innocence in this matter. She also must explain what's happened with the findings, okay? But in the instance of, say, Dillon Whyte, where he's governed by the Portuguese Boxing Federation, and that fight is not a world championship fight, you're left with these results from a test, but no one to actually rule what they're going to do. I don't see Portugal going, yeah, let's have a big legal hearing, and Dillon, and Dillon will probably be saying, well, I need to go through a process because I want to prove my innocence. But where do I go? The board won't touch it because it's VADA, and they'll probably just say, you're not licensed with us, and by me, we've had this mess with Conor Benn, and I understand that. VADA go, we're just a reporting agency. We can't adjudicate. Like, this is the other thing I was thinking the other day. And I've seen a lot of things of, oh, this is, Matchroom's fault, another Matchroom fight. It's like, you can't have it everywhere. If you want us to invest in testing, there are going to be more adverse findings. So if you don't want to congratulate us for spending money on additional testing, don't criticise us when one of our fighters tests positive because of all that testing we're doing. None of you guys, not having a pop, will go to a show and say to, I don't know, Frank Warren, Dennis McCann's fighting Baluta on Saturday. Has Baluta been tested? And he will go, he'll be tested on Saturday with UK. So yeah, but
That'll be a day too late.
yeah, of course, Friday. Yeah, but he might be tested on Saturday. They can still do it while he's in the country. The reality is he hasn't been. Yeah, so, and I'm not having a pop at but every promote, like, it's expensive. You're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 per fight. So you want us to go, like, for instance, Saturday night. We obviously don't have VADA testing. Now, all of these guys that are licensed by British Boxing Board of Control are on UCAD random testing. I think that program is the best program in boxing. It is a program that is related to the commission that have a process of testing and disciplinary. Right? It's actually really, really good. So, but at the same time, I don't know, Chris Thompson, who's a heavyweight, fighting Soldakers, he ain't been I mean, I can't, I only knew he was fighting him 3 or 4 weeks ago. I can't. And then what are you going to do? Pay 30,000 to start testing Chris Thompson in a fight that probably that's the combined, it's like double what he's getting. Do you understand? So it's very, very difficult. But what we're trying to do is do, like I thought the other day, it'd be a good thing to do. What about if we introduce Matchroom random testing program for our signed fighters? So any fighter that is with Matchroom is subject to VADA random testing. Bit like what WBC do. Again, commending the WBC. Fantastic. They don't test enough because you can't to test enough. Exactly, right? But then I thought about, okay, so say that we introduce that testing program, and then I don't know. I'll use Darren Barker because I don't want to offend the current fighter. Darren Barker tests positive, right? And I get the results, and it says, Darren, what happens then?
Well, I think in all honesty, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, but we need, it's not just about results, it's about the process from there. It's about giving a fighter an opportunity to protest his innocence, but it's also about a disciplinary procedure that carries penalties. Because to stop fighters from using performance-enhancing drugs, you need to put fear into them, knowing that they are going to be tested, and there needs to be a punishment that they know if they get caught, they're right in the shit. And at the moment, I see none of either. You know what I mean? So if I'm a fighter right now, and I'm fighting on a Warren show or a Ben Shalom show, and I know that I'm not being tested, there's probably people out there, and I agree with what Derek Chisora said the other day. I don't think the fighters are ever at fault. I don't believe a fighter sits at home after training, goes on Google and starts researching what substances might give him an edge in a fight. But you can imagine some kind of coach or trainer going, listen, it's like the cycling thing. When, I can't remember the guy who wrote the book, was going up the hill and all these fighters were going past him, and he looked to the bloke at the left and he went, well, they're all on performance-enhancing drugs, aren't they? So, people in the ear of people, I remember Dwayne Chambers, who I knew very well, worked at a company that represented him, the nicest guy again. If you'd have told me he would ever taken performance-enhancing drugs, I would have said, never, ever. He went out to America, met a guy called Victor Conti, my good friend, and they talked him into cheating. Right? He would never have cheated off his own back. So I think a lot of these fighters meet people who say, oh, that's like, do that, and if you do that on 3 days and 2 days, and that's out your system. But we need to make sure that there's so much fear within the roster, not just our roster, but the global roster of fighters, where people go, fuck that, you can't win, you can't escape this. But that's a very, very expensive process. We're willing to invest in that process, but you can never get it totally right. And what we don't want is criticism when we do spend money on testing and someone tests positive, and then it's our fault that someone's tested positive. Right?
So one last question about us. Next Gen show, you've just announced the signing of Visioli.
Yeah.
When are we going to next see him out?
Yeah, as soon as possible, and I think maybe even as early as sort of end of September, October. Got to go through, get his licensing, his medicals with the board. Very, very good young fighter. All of these fighters on here, but you need to produce a performance where people talk about you, right? So after your performance, whether it's Sahil Khan, whether it's Ibrahim Suleiman, whether it's Aaron Bowen, you guys have got to go away talking, going, fucking, that kid's fucking good. Yeah, but like, that's the pressure's on them to do that. And Vizzioli's a guy who, again, he's got it on a plate. All these kids have got it on a plate. 6, 7 fights a year on the biggest shows around the world. But I don't want to see, at this level, I don't want to see 4 rounds in going, I want to see, wow, I want to be feeling my heart pumping through my chest saying, love this kid, let's get him out again.
Emmanuel Navarrete had a very good fight the other day, but top rank fans are saying that it's going to be difficult to match up with any more top opposition. Of course, you've got the likes of Joe Cordina, Lee Wood if he moves up, the Fostervers and Anders Persbit are with you.
Yeah.
And do you think there'll be ever a possibility where Navarrete could come and fight for this matches?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to Navarrete before, actually. He's a tremendous fighter. I mean, he doesn't always look like the best fighter in the world, but he beat Oscar Valdez. He's got he's a bit hot and cold. I mean, I think when he fought Liam Wilson, he missed weight. He was a bit all over the place, but I'd love to make that fight with Joe Cordina. I mean, look, we're doing Rocky Hernandez against O'Shaquie Foster. The winner of that fight will likely fight Joe Cordina. And then after Joe's unified, we'll look to make the Navarrete fight. I think it's a tremendous fight.
And is there any more update of when the announcement might be for the Joe Cordina next fight?
It looks like it's going to be in Monaco, but we'll announce that soon. Be a voluntary defence, and then hopefully see him unify outdoors in the spring in Cardiff.
Eddie, could I just get your reaction to the Jamel Charlo Canelo press conferences and face-off? Jamel looked a lot bigger than Canelo, which was a bit surprising.
Nah, they always do though. Like I remember every head-to-head I was involved with Canelo, the opponent, even John Ryder, who's not the biggest super middleweight in terms of height, but you can see the thickness. Like, Canelo's like got a neck like this. He's like this, and I think Charlo, who's a really good fighter, is going to find it really difficult against the size of Canelo Alvarez. Like, you got Charlo at 154, probably like a very, very, very small 160 pounder. And when Canelo rehydrates, he's going to be a huge super middleweight. And I think that'll win him the fight.
Eddie, what was your reaction to Canelo saying that Al Heyman and PBC are currently the best promoters in boxing? Does that add as like a motivation for you to? Remember you said they had the best 6 months to the start of the year.
Yeah. I think in America right now they are in 2023 the best promotional company, and also Sal says all the right things. He used to say that about me as well. But we're good friends, and I think he's made the right decision. I think that's definitely the right couple of fights for him. I hope we can work together in the future. But unquestionably, when you look at 2023, PBC are the best promotional company in America right now. And yeah, his motivation. We've got a great back end coming up with some big fights to announce. But I know we're a global operator, but we still want to be number one in every country. And right now they're leading the way, and we're right on their heels.